My name is Rachel Rofe. I created the show because I wanted to help you see that if you have a choice, you can choose a better life. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in a pretty fortunate position. You have free will, ability to connect to the internet, and access to all kinds of new education. This podcast is meant to help you make the most of your good fortune. We talk with all kinds of people here from all walks of life because I want you to see that no matter what your situation, there's always a way to create a life that you're proud of. Hello! So today's episode is all about how to become a morning person. And there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to make this episode. First of all, I love morning routines, so I've made other podcasts about that, so if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know about that. And when I was doing some research for articles that I was writing about it, I saw a ton of Google searches from people wanting to figure out how to become a morning person. And also, I just know whenever I have conversations with people and I let them know that I love to wake up early and all the stuff that I get done in the morning, I get people asking how I can do that because for them it just doesn't work to wake up early. I just know there are so many benefits from waking up early, so I figured I would make this episode and give you some tips on how you could wake up earlier if you wanted. Now, before I even do this though, I want to give the caveat that I am naturally a morning person, and I've heard of other people trying to become morning people, and for them, their rhythm is just better at night. But then I've also heard of people who were just hell-bent on becoming a morning person, and they did eventually train themselves. So if you kind of have to wake up early anyway, then this episode will just help you sink into that better. And if you really want to wake up earlier, then this will definitely give you some great tips. You know, some of the reasons why I just love waking up early, I just love the thinking that comes in the morning. I just feel like I'm so creative in the morning, and I know that that's actually for a lot of people the case. And I was listening to Tim Ferriss talk about this book that he was reading, and it's all about daily rituals, and they had studied all these different successful people, and the biggest pattern that he found was that the world's most successful people all got their best work done when other people were sleeping. So it was either very early in the morning or very late at night. I think just being able to create that time for yourself would be great. And then also, it's just really nice to be able to wake up early if you're normally rushed and have a morning routine so that you can set the tone for your day and just start to structure yourself to just wake up and set yourself up for feeling really, really good. Another episode, if you haven't listened to it yet, would be the podcast episode with Hal Elrod, because if you do start to wake up earlier, he has a great podcast that we did all about setting morning routines. Okay, so in this episode, I'm just going to go over some different tips, and in my normal style, you can do one of them, all of them, a few of them, whatever resonates with you, whatever. And obviously, the more that you do, I think the better your chances are for becoming a morning person and just being happier when you wake up and getting ready to go. Okay, so the first thing that you can do when you wake up is just put a big glass of water on your nightstand. So if you drink 16 to 32 ounces of water as soon as you wake up, it helps fire up your metabolism, it'll help you feel energized. You'll also be hydrating yourself and just giving your brain some fuel to get moving, because our bodies are made up of mostly water. And so when you wake up and you're feeling dehydrated, you're kind of already at a deficit. So when you just give yourself some water, you're just going to start to feel better. And if you haven't listened to the podcast episode with Sean Stevenson, where we talked about just feeling really healthy, he touched on this there too. So if you're interested in that, that might be something to also listen to. Another thing you can do is just plan out the hard things the night before. So if you normally wake up in the morning and you feel like a zombie and just everything's a lot harder, then just make it easier on yourself. So whatever you're going to do in the morning, just start to take some of the actions in advance. So for example, if you drink a morning smoothie, you can have your ingredients pre-cut, put them in a Ziploc bag in your fridge, or some of the ingredients you can even just already have in your blender ready to go. Like if you have the greens powders or anything like that. If you want to exercise first thing in the morning, then you can have your workout clothes ready or even just sleep in them. You know, when you prepare in advance, it just doesn't feel like as much work to go through and get those things done because a lot of the hard stuff is already taken care of. Another thing is just have the first activity that you do be something that you love. It's a lot easier to get out of bed when you have something that you're looking forward to. So create a great playlist that you're excited to listen to, save a podcast that you want to listen to for your morning walk, or maybe even schedule an exercise class with a friend. Something else you can do is go to bed earlier. So, this isn't new, but just consider, especially if you're kind of tired at night and you're just staying up anyway, then a lot of times we have kind of mindless, like watching TV or mindless surfing the web. And if you can cut that out in service to just making lifestyle changes that'll make you feel better, your quality of life might end up becoming a lot better. So think about going to bed earlier, and one thing that you can do to go to bed earlier is to actually have an alarm clock at night. So if you have an alarm clock that reminds you when it's about an hour away from your bedtime, then you can just start shutting down your electronics. You can go through and any nighttime rituals that you have, anything you want to plan out for the next morning, you can start doing that. And then just get yourself in that routine of going to bed at an earlier time consistently. Another thing you can do is just commit to waking up early for 21 days. So you don't have to say, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Just commit every day for 21 days. And whenever you feel like you don't want to do it anymore, just remind yourself it's only 21 days. Now, some people say that it takes 21 days to create a habit. I've seen people say this is true, people say this is not true, so I don't really know. But if it does take 21 days to create a habit, then that would be great because you could just commit to those 21 days and then see if you feel better after that. And I think you probably will. For me, it's usually a couple weeks when I start to see some really awesome results. And if you're waking up early and seeing how great it is, it's just something that you're going to naturally want to continue with. Something else you can do is become accountable with a friend who also wants to wake up earlier. So set a time for both of you guys to wake up and then just text each other to show that you've done it. Accountability can be a really, really powerful motivator. Something else is to just get perspective. I don't remember if this was in his interview with this podcast or if it was in his book, but one of the things he said was, when the alarm clock goes off in the morning, it's life's first gift to you, but it's also life's first challenge or test. If you say you want to have an extraordinary life, but the message we're sending to the universe is, well, no, I don't really want it as bad as I want to lie here unconscious for another 9 or 10 minutes. Then the alarm clock is going to go off again, and it's like, yeah, I could wake up, become a better version of myself, but I'm just kind of too lazy. I just want to lay. I don't have the discipline. And so that's a really powerful message to send when you first wake up every single day. So if you're laying in bed and you'd rather just stay there, remind yourself of that perspective. Remind yourself that you've gotten the gift of waking up early. Get up anyway, Another thing you can do is visualize yourself waking up early the next morning. So visualization is crazy powerful. So if you just feel how it feels to wake up, see what you see, how you're going to move throughout the day, just do for a minute. Just see yourself waking up early. It's amazing how powerful this is. I visualize a lot too whenever I want to remember to do something when I get home. I'll just take a few seconds and I'll think about myself going home and going directly to what I need to do and making it happen. And it just works so well. Visualization is just so powerful. Like there's been a lot of studies with sports players, and they show that sports players who just visualize making winning shots are actually nearly as effective as those who actually take the time to practice winning those shots. So super, super powerful. There's a book I've mentioned in a couple podcasts called Psycho-Cybernetics if you want to hear about more visualization. If you do decide to buy that book, I get the one with Dan Kennedy because it's just a lot easier to go through. The other one's kind of dry. Something else you can do is just remind yourself of what the benefits will be. So when your alarm clock goes off and you'd rather be sleeping, just remind yourself that you're about to get some me time. Maybe you're going to become healthier. If you're going to do some exercise, you'll get some endorphins. And you'll also just feel proud of yourself for committing to something and then sticking with it. So just remind yourself of all the great stuff that comes with waking up earlier. You also might want to even create yourself a reward. Some of us are more motivated by pleasure, some of us are more motivated by pain, so you can create either a reward or a consequence. If you do a reward, then maybe you do something where if you wake up for however many days in a row, you'll reward yourself with some kind of present, or take a day off, or just do something else that's going to motivate you. Or if you feel like you're more motivated by pain, then create a consequence there too. So maybe the consequence is you're angry with yourself. Maybe you tell yourself you'll feel like a failure, or you'll continue doing things that you're not proud of. Maybe you do something where you have to give money to a friend or do something embarrassing or whatever you feel like is going to motivate you. You know yourself the best. Something else, you can take melatonin if you want. So if you have a hard time going to bed at night, melatonin is a great non-addicting natural hormone that helps you get to sleep. So I know my boyfriend, for example, he has a hard time falling asleep, and so he takes the melatonin, and it's really, really effective for him. Now, I will say the one thing with melatonin is if you have a hard time going to sleep because you have major anxiety, then I've heard that melatonin doesn't work as well. But if it's just because you have a hard time for some other reason, then melatonin is usually really great. And if you do have anxiety, then one thing that could help is just to take some deep breaths before you go to bed. If you have a ton going on in your mind, it might not even be anxiety, but if you're just, like for example, if you're in a high-stress career or you have a business and you have so many things running through your mind, it can be a lot harder to fall asleep because you have so many things, boom, 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 all over your head. So just take several deep breaths and then just try to calm down your nervous system. Taking deep breaths can be really, really helpful. And then if all else fails, just start slowly. So if you can't wake up like 30 to 60 minutes earlier, then try doing it gradually. So maybe you set your alarm clock 15 minutes earlier one day, and then or actually even do it for a few days, and then 30 minutes earlier, then 45, then 60. Make it feel easier for you if your sleep routine isn't a ton different. If you go in 15-minute increments, it's not really that huge. So this way nothing ever feels too drastic, and then the small commitments add up to some major long-term results. So hopefully this helps. You know, when you wake up early, there's just so many great things you can do, like set that morning routine. Again, there's a Hal Elrod podcast. I've also made a podcast about 5-minute things that you can do to start making your days go a lot better. If you also might want to listen to that. So you get the morning routines, you could do exercise, you could do creative work. If you want to start a business or do something else, you can spend that time there. So I just think there's so many benefits to waking up early, and I really hope that this episode helps you. So I'd love to hear what you think. As always, feel free to leave a comment on the show note, shout out on Twitter, and let me know what you think, and let me know if you do them and how it works for you. All right, have a great day. Thank you so much for listening to A Better Life. You can find all show notes for this episode at rachelrofay.com. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you can automatically get access to all new shows. Let's also connect. Just go onto Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram /RachelRofay, and we can talk there. The opinions of all guests here are their own, and I'm not necessarily endorsing any of them. I do want to give you perspective, though. And always remember, if you have a choice, choose a better life.